Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here this time with an oops book haul.
Hey, you bastard.
Yeah.
You absolute bastard.
I'm a son of a bitch.
Let me premise with, we went to Barnes & Noble.
We had to go to Barnes & Noble.
We had to. The premier bookstore for our area, the one place that I always avoid because I spend too much money.
Right.
Which I did.
Yeah.
I went in with the intentions of getting one book, and now we have a book haul.
That was not my fault.
That was kind of your fault. You kept pointing and be like, oh, what about this?
It was not my fault. I handed you one book in that entire thing.
So let's talk about the book. That's what's important here.
Yeah.
What's the first thing?
You know what, let's start with the reason we had to go.
Okay, the reason we had to go to Barnes & Noble, Carrie by Stephen King.
We're going to be doing this the second week of June.
Hopefully.
Neither of us had it.
And I needed to pick it up, and I said, oh, it's mass market, $8. I can splurge instead of Amazoning this book. So this is the reason we went.
Yeah. You know, a couple things on this. This was Stephen King's first published novel.
Okay.
He was finished, I believe, with the first draft, and he threw it away.
Really?
Yes. His wife dug it out of the trash can, wiped the cigarette butts off of it.
Good for her.
Slammed it on the table and said, you finished this, you son of a bitch. Now, I learned this story from reading On Writing.
Okay.
And when I first read On Writing, it was the winter break of my second year up at Missouri Western, when I was still majoring in English education. And I read it, and I've never read Carrie.
Okay.
And he was talking about Carrie in the book, and it's enough in the collective conscious that I knew what it was, right? I know a lot of the things that happen in Carrie. There's pop culture references to Carrie all the time. It's a story that you can't necessarily avoid if you were of my generation.
Okay. And I'll give you that as well.
No, hold on. It struck me when reading that Stephen King, I think, was 27 or 28 when it was published.
Okay.
He was teaching high school English. That's basically where he got the ideas for the story. And it struck me, if you were a high school teacher today and you publish Carrie, on Friday, you don't have a job on Monday.
That is correct. 100%.
And that's a sad world to live in.
It is. It is.
What kind of world do we live in where a high school principal could legitimately look Stephen King in the face and say to him, sorry, pal, you can't teach here. You are not qualified to teach high school English.
And you know, that's the thing, we've talked about this a few times with the book censorship.
Yes.
It's extremely unfortunate that's what society has gotten to. Now, you said this, for your generation, you can't avoid this. I agree, even being a little younger than you. I mean, I've seen the movie on this. I know there's references to this everywhere. I haven't read it.
Yeah,
so I'm excited for it. I think it's a good pick.
I believe there are two movies, aren't there? This has been made.
There has been a remake.
And there's been a television series.
There was actually a recent film remake as well.
Really?
Yes. Not bad, actually. I rather enjoyed it. I cannot think of the actress's name. It's Chloe
Moretz. Chloe Moretz?
I don't know her name.
Yeah, she was in Kick-Ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her. She's Carrie.
Okay.
It was pretty good. But we have done Stephen King in the past.
Yes.
We did The Gunslinger.
We will do Stephen King in the future.
Big fan of Stephen King?
I am not a big fan of Stephen King, but I make a point to read Stephen King.
Because Stephen King is a beast?
Because he's sold more books than God.
So, good choice.
Yes.
That's our first one. This was an impulse buy.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know it existed and we found it.
You can blame me for this one too.
I'm blaming you for this one. This is Make Something Up, Stories You Can't Unread, Chuck Palahniuk.
Short stories by Chuck Palahniuk. Come on.
Short stories by Chuck Palahniuk.
Short stories by Chuck Palahniuk.
Didn't know this existed.
I had no idea.
This is 21 stories and a novella by Palahniuk.
Now, here's the plan here. We are currently we have it planned to make a video reviewing each of the short stories in the 10th of December collection from George Saunders. And I'm thinking after we do that, we'll move on to this. Let us know in the comments below if you have read this, if you knew about this, if you have any ideas for which short story we should read first here. Like I said, I had no idea this was a thing.
We've turned a lot of people on to Polonic lately, so we're really excited for this. Like I told Adrian when we bought it, I'm sorry that you're not going to sleep tonight. But this is copyright 2015. This is First Anchor Books edition, April 2016. This might be just popped out.
You know, I don't know, because normally Polonic gets hardback treatment. And normally the paperback comes out a good deal of time after the
Maybe. I'm excited for it, that's for sure. I hope I pass out reading this one too. So, impulse buy, no problem. I knocked over an action figure, you're welcome.
That was Curtis.
I'm sorry. Something else that we're planning to do for the channel that we needed to get a copy of, I think I have a copy of, but I could be wrong. Animal Farm.
Yeah.
George Orwell. This is your high school lit classic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I read it my junior year, I believe.
I haven't read it. This was my senior year in high school. Our teacher basically put out a list of classics, and you could choose one, and that was what you did your final over. I did Clockwork Orange. That's where I fell in love with that. But this was one of the options.
Very ballsy for your high school teacher to put Clockwork Orange on there.
There were some options in there, and just a premise with this, I get along with this guy well. We did the Canterbury Tales as well. And he went through and basically gave each story a film rating, like PG-13, R. So you knew what you were getting into. And Clockwork Orange, I can't remember if it was on the list or if I requested it, and he said, you sure? Because this is it. And I'm like, yeah, baby, I got this. And I fell in love with it. So I've missed this one. I've heard a lot of good things. And I think it's going to be a good one.
Like I say, I read it my junior year in high school. I haven't touched it since. I remember even thinking at the time that it was sort of heavy-handed.
Okay.
But that, you know, I'm more susceptible to things now. Here's the part that gets me about this edition. There's the preface.
Okay.
The preface is a good 10% of the actual length of this
Preface and introduction,
Yeah.
and then rest of novel.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to go through again. I have not looked at this book through literary eyes yet.
Okay.
So,
That'll be interesting. So hopefully we will have a review on this one
yes.
relatively soon.
This is where our halls diverge.
This is where we parted ways.
Yes.
We found a couple. You want to do your first one?
Sure. Lois Lowry?
Lois Lowry.
Lois Lowry, The Giver. I have never read this. I remember it was big when I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. A separate English class read it. I have wondered what this is about. I don't have much to say about it because the Poptimist called this very heavy-handed, and he was not a fan. So I am wondering if I will follow along those lines. We are planning to read this at some point for the channel. If you're excited to see that, let us know. We'll bump it up in the rankings, but we've got it pretty far out at this point.
Let me talk about how we came across The Giver. We're walking around Barnes & Noble, and we're like, we should go to the young adult section. I'm like, no, we shouldn't. But we decide to.
We did.
Because that is pertinent. People on BookTube love young adult genre. We are unfamiliar.
And I do have fun.
Making fun of the books.
Making fun of it, sure, but breaking it down into the literary tropes that we know of, and taking a serious look at a book written for teens.
And we always say you have to read everything. You cannot dismiss anything.
Right.
So we're looking around the young adult section, dismissing everything.
Yeah.
There's the Mortal Instruments. I'm like, I think that's big. I don't know what it's about. Divergent series. I think that's big. I don't know what it's about. And we just pass it. And then later we see The Giver. And I'm like, oh, The Giver. I remember reading that in like middle school. I couldn't speak on the writing or anything. It's been too long since I read it. I was a lot younger. I do remember there are some good themes, some good adult elements in there. So introducing young adult readers to adult elements. So I think it will be an interesting read, especially as a literary perspective.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Right.
I got Waking Up by Sam Harris, because
How'd you stumble across that?
Adrian hates me. And in addition to having to read everything for the channel and any personal reading that I want, he says I have to read this. Now, I will say, I have wanted to read this. You said this is a life changer, potential life changer.
Yeah.
I think it will be very interesting. This is a guide to spirituality without religion. I'm okay with that. This seems very Eastern philosophy to me, and I'm excited about that. Sam Harris very big in the atheist community. So this will be an interesting read.
This is Eastern philosophy plus atheism plus self-motivation. Like,
Okay.
It's in that, it could very easily be on an end cap in the self-help section.
So I know Adrian's talked about this a lot. I've mentioned it a few times that I wanted to read it. I finally made the leap and decided to buy it.
I am excited to see your copy after you read it to figure out what we marked up the same and differently.
Okay.
In fact, I would love, since we plan on doing something called Quickies.
Yes.
Where it will be an individual's book review, and we've got a format written out for it and everything. They should go over well, or should go well, smoothly. I think we should both do one on that book.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
That sounds fair. Your next choice.
Elie Wiesel?
I think it's Weissel.
Weissel? Well, I mean German, obviously. Yeah. Night by Elie Wiesel. Now, this book has a strange place in my history in that I've never actually read it. But when I was in St. Louis and I was in grad school, well, St. Charles, people from St. Charles say that St. Charles is part of St. Louis. People from St. Louis say, no, that's St. Charles.
And not those people.
Right. So I was up there, and I spent a lot of time in the library at St. Charles, on Elm Street in St. Charles.
Okay.
And one of these days, I couldn't write, I couldn't read, so I'm just wandering around, and I stopped by a book called Night, and I took it off the shelf, and I read the back, and it had haunted me ever since. Born in the town of Siget, Transylvania, Elie Wiesel was a teenager when he and his family were taken from their home in 1944 to the Auschwitz concentration camp, and then to Buchenwald. Night is the terrifying record of Elie Wiesel's memories of the death of his family, the death of his own innocence, and his despair as a deeply observant Jew confronting the absolute evil of man. This new translation by his wife and most frequent translator, Marion Wiesel, corrects important details and presents the most accurate rendering in English of Elie Wiesel's testimony to what happened in the camps and his unforgettable message that this horror must never be allowed to happen again. Now, I read that and I was like, I have never heard of this.
Yeah.
So I Googled it. Apparently, this is incredibly influential, as one might imagine a book of about these subjects might be. And I've wanted to read it ever since. And it will haunt me little places. Like I'll go to the library.
It's always there.
It'll just be sticking out from someplace. Or I'll go to a bookstore and it'll be facing me from someplace. So I can't wait to get into it.
All throughout college, I worked at a bookstore. And all 4 years I was there, that book was prominent.
Really?
A lot of people assigned that book in high school. A lot of people assigned that book in college level. So naturally, we bought used books at that store. We'd always get boxes of this book. So I'd always see it, and I've always wanted to read it. I picked it up as part of my $2 bargain book haul.
Okay.
So make sure you watch that video as well. And hopefully maybe we'll get something in the works for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, something I've never purchased before. I have a copy of Barrel House. This is a lit magazine.
Yes.
Which I will safely say 99% of BookTube has never held in their hands. This is a literary magazine, which means it's a collection of short stories, poems. Contemporary. These are authors that you may not have heard of. These are the up-and-comings. This is the future of literature.
And these will be featured prominently in a video coming to you soon from Strip Cover Lit.
A very special series that we're excited about. But this is how you find out about...
This is the future.
This is the future. This is the world of literature.
This is what's coming.
This is the current trends. This is what's growing. So I'm really excited about this.
And the fact that you probably... Because I haven't even held many of these in my hands.
Yes, no one buys these unless they're
and
us.
that's why literature is dying.
Yes. Because here's the thing, you can get online and you can find online lit magazines. I've read a few of those. I keep up on Decomp quite a bit. I read all their stories every month. There's 100-word stories that I dabble in every now and then.
No one's getting paid for those.
No one's getting paid for those. It's very, look at a writer's point of view. It is something to see your work in print.
Yeah.
So this is a great thing.
Of all the publications I've had, which aren't that numerous, I've only had one in an actual journal that is not associated with a university.
Interesting.
So, and for those of you who don't know, when you get published in something like this, often they pay you in what is known as contributor copies. So they will send you 3-4 magazines maybe. Normally, it's 1 or 2. So
But just to have something like that, that means a lot.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited about this. I don't recognize a single name on here, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, hopefully there's something in here that's really gonna really move me. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about lit magazines in a later video series. We hope you join us for that one. And hopefully we can start getting these flying off the shelves a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that it is not only important and pertinent, but it is it's on the dire level.
Yeah.
Right.
And another point just to throw out, this is $10.
Yeah.
This is $10 for a lot of stories, a lot
of different
poems.
points of view.
Fiction, nonfiction, special section on riots, illustrated stories, poetry. This is what's $10 to further literature?
Right.
I mean, I think that's a good deal.
If everyone got in the practice of picking one up per month,
Yes.
right? Just one, and they're not all $10.
No,
some of them are more than that.
There's more expensive ones.
Yeah.
But this is coming from a guy who I literally threw a fit the entire drive home about going to Barnes & Noble because I always spend too much money there.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. $10 is reasonable.
If we in this community are not that versed in what is contemporary, what is that? Because look, without the lit magazine scene, Hemingway never happens.
Exactly.
Fitzgerald never happens. Back in the day of Hemingway and Fitzgerald, writers were making a living as writers through journals.
That's what you picked up.
Yeah,
That's what you were excited for.
does not happen anymore.
So
So it's important to rejuvenate that so that the art will have a lifeblood.
I agree. So let us know what you think about our selections at our Oops book haul, because we wanted one book, we got too many books. If you've read any of these, let us know, especially this Chuck Palahniuk one. I'm really excited about that.
Right. Let us know if you've read Carrie, because I'm interested to see, as popular as Stephen King is, and he's written 165 books, how many people have actually read Carrie, his first novel? So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and join us next time.